Hello, everybody. This is Beth Worsdell, author. This is a happy Wednesday or hump day. We're trying to make sure it's not so much a hump day for you all today. This is the horror book chat. And I'm here with the fantastic Jim Ody and Stefanie Nici. Hello, darlings.
Hi.
I've been so excited about today because I am such a big horror fan. And it was actually you, Stefanie, that suggested we do another book chat show. So I'm super excited about it because, you know, obviously all three of us are authors. All three of us are avid readers. And Jim writes the most spectacular horror books. Well, they're horror and thriller, aren't they, Jim?
Yeah. I mean, so I write a lot of psychological thrillers. A lot of them do kind of, I guess, go over genres to kind of bordering on really horror. And I guess what would have been considered horror back in the late 80s, early 90s, before, you know, things were kind of recategorized to suddenly make things, you know, suddenly more thriller, and that because it seemed more acceptable and more commercial to make it that way. But yeah. I like to delve in and out and look at the dark side of life, as well as having a little bit of comedic lightheartedness as well.
That's fantastic. I've got to say, your new book cover. Have you seen his latest book, Stefanie?
No, I haven't. Let's see.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna have to put it in the comments. We're gonna have to put a link up for Jim's books because his new cover is. Look at that.
Oh wow, yeah.
Isn't that fantastic? The
crazy season. Yeah, I like honestly, that.
It's so enticing. It really, really is. We've already got people joining us, so I'm going to pop them up and say hello. So Theodore has joined us. He says, hello, you all.
Hi, hello. Theodore.
And we've also got Anna as well. Hello, Anna. She's one of my readers, actually. She's fabulous.
Hi, Anna.
So for those of you who are just joining us, this is a horror book chat. So we'll be chatting all things scary, spooky, and horror related, and with regards to books, and I am super excited. I just want to get rid of one particular myth with you guys and everybody who's watching, because a lot of readers, and myself included before I became an author, I think we automatically assume that an author who writes sci-fi fantasy, for example, will read only sci-fi fantasy. And that is not the case, because I write sci-fi fantasy and I have always been a massive, huge horror fan. I mean, when in my teens, I always had either a James Herbert book in my hand, or especially Stephen King. I couldn't get enough of those two authors. So I was always reading horror, and it wasn't until later on that I actually really got into sort of fantasy and sci-fi. So what about you guys? Stefanie, what do you love to read, and what do you actually write?
Well, I write women's fiction, but I love to read everything. It's more or less the mood that I'm in. You know what I mean? And when I was a kid, I only read horror. I loved it because I used to also love Alfred Hitchcock, Twilight Zone. I don't know if anybody remembers, or if it was when you guys were growing up, but does anybody remember when the hand came up out of the wavy ground? And Friday the 13th. I mean, there were a lot of shows on too, but those were the books that I read because as a kid I enjoyed horror. And I even wrote the vampire movies from like a long time ago, you know, when we were kids, like there was some black and white horror, you know, that was horror then. It's different now. Now vampires it's like romantic fantasy. You know, the vampire thing is like totally different than it was, right? When I was a kid anyway, we might have a little bit of an age difference, but when I was a kid, vampires were strictly horror, and they slept in basements and under buildings and, you know, in coffins, and they, you know, right? They crossed their arms and they wore capes. Now they walk around and they look like regular people. But
people used to go around with, especially the priests and stuff, they'd have the big crosses.
Oh yeah, the cross, the garlic. They even used to sell the little plastic fake teeth. But I did start out as a horror lover. I read horror books. I watched horror shows. I couldn't get enough of it. But then, yeah, as I got older, I tended to want to write more about women's, issues and things that happen, in life, to people. It's not even, men read my books too, and they love them, and they say that they can relate, or, they just enjoy the read from a woman's point of view, I guess. But so now I read everything. So, and I did just bring a couple out. This is Stephen King talks about Richard. Is it Lemon? But I think he has since passed away, right?
Yeah.
I think he's since passed away. And this is my favorite, Neil Gaiman with the Graveyard Book.
I haven't read that yet.
I insist, Beth, you do audio book with Neil Gaiman. We're gonna have to talk to Mr. Gaiman about that. And I got a Dean Koontz Odd Hours, which is also horror. So I just wanted to bring those out, but this is my favorite. And he even does he reads this on YouTube, 6 chapters maybe at a time. So that was that's pretty fascinating. But I read everything. I've read your book, Jim. I plan to read your book. I read. It depends on the mood.
Yeah. What about you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty much the same. So, when I first started reading adult books, it was horror that I started with. So it was people like Sean Hudson, of course, James Herbert, and Stephen King, moving through things like the Christopher Pike books. I always really enjoyed, because that was kind of a bit of a halfway house of kind of young adult kind of horror. And then I got into John Grisham's and James Patterson and kind of more thriller sort of things like that, and a little bit more kind of mainstream. But now I'm back to reading kind of young adult books as well. I like people like Nora Roberts, where it's a kind of more of a mystery kind of.
I have her books.
But it's about relationships as well as the kind of mystery of it, and I quite like that old setting, quite nice sceneries and stuff. I was born and raised in the country, so city books don't mean so much to me. I like very I guess countrysides and coves and small fishing villages and those sort of things, just nicely out in the middle of nowhere where strange things can happen, and I guess there's more for me there's more kind of possibilities, whereas a city itself just seems a big scary place to me. So it's a whole different kind of ball game. But I did exactly the same as Stefanie, actually. So I bought a couple of books that I liked as well. So the likes of Richard Lehman again. One of I like that one, and
Fantastic.
Darkness Tell Us. So that's one of the ones I really like. And I've having read all of the Richard Lehman ones, I've now started collecting some of his rarer ones as well that he did under other names and things like that. So I've kind of started getting back into that. Bentley Little is a huge one that I like. Just he has a bit of a formula to him to what he does. Often someone moving to a new town, and then there's some sort of evil that happens, and the main guy is usually kind of a happy-go-lucky kind of family man, sorts it out in the end, sort of thing. But there's different scenes, there's different weird things that go on, and I've just always kind of really like those. And just a Jack Ketchum book. He's kind of a little bit more extreme with
haven't read that one either.
Yep.
Our list is getting out of control, I've got to tell you.
It is really hard to keep up, and especially when you write, right? It's hard. It's hard to read.
You're either writing or you're reading. It's so difficult, especially when you know what it's like. You're constantly getting idea after idea after idea. It's really tricky to keep up with it. We've got some more people that's joined us. So I'm just going to say hello to them. So we've got Dot who's joined us, and she says hi there. Hello, Dot.
Hello. Hi, Dot.
And we've also got Donna. She says hi, Jim and everyone. Thank you for joining.
Hi,
Donna. There we go. So Dot says, I write dark fantasy, but usually don't read or watch it because I like to scare people, but apparently don't like to be scared. I'm not the only one, Dot. I've got to say I know quite a few writers who are exactly the same. That's so funny. Wendy has joined us as well. Thank you for joining us, Wendy. She
Hi,
said,
Wendy.
Hello.
I remember Chiller.
Oh, great. See, Wendy, yeah, because that's, from a while back now, Chiller, and it was in black. I'm pretty sure it was even in black and white, and then they switched it over to color. But I mean, they were good. They were creepy.
Oh, we're frozen. Hello, hello,
We
hello.
are? Oh, I think, Beth is frozen.
Yeah.
we lost Beth for a second, but I know Beth will be back. But as far as Chiller goes, they had some nice creepy stuff that went on that, you know what I mean? Like if you watched it, you would actually get the feeling that it was scary. And not only do they not make those anymore, but horror has changed, right?
Yeah,
like you said.
exactly. And it is all about, isn't it? It's the fear of, and they're doing the small things to just make more fear, as opposed to having to, big theatrical blood and and guts and whatever. You don't need that. I mean, there was the 80s where they went over the top with that and kind of
the slasher, like the slasher and the bloody stuff. And we were just talking, Beth, about how horror has changed. So, it's from the way it used to be to the way it is now. And then like Jim said about, everything, well, not everything, but it's, like before it used to be creepy, like you used to get scared, or like it used to give you a feeling, but now they don't make those anymore. And it's really not like that anymore. And then Jim was saying how in the 80s, like everything was like slasher and, it just changed.
I think a lot of it is basically our desensitization of horror in general. I mean, you think about it. I mean, the first books that I remember reading when I was young, which were then turned into movies, were things like Bram Stoker's Dracula. I mean, the original Dracula movie and book was like really, scary and terrifying. And even Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, at the time, even when I was young, that was still quite a really scary book. Obviously, then it got put into, again, movies, and they've had different adaptations. But I think you just get more desensitized to horror in general. I think it's only really now that we've got the technology to make movie adaptations super realistic.
Yeah.
The effects now can really do the original book justice. And I must admit, there's few authors that I think have really changed horror for the better. And I think the first one, the first two obviously is Bram Stoker and Mary Shelley. I mean, they literally catapulted the horror genre, didn't they? And we're talking back in 18 something and 19 something. But then you've got, for example, like Anne Rice, who did like Interview with a Vampire and that type of.
Right, yeah.
I've read all three. There's actually Interview with the Vampire, Lestat, and Queen of the Damned. And even those were quite scary. When you actually read the books, they're quite scary, because there's a lot of going on.
And sometimes that doesn't always transfer over, though, in the movie.
No,
right?
The movie was more romantic, I think, than horror. And when I read her books, they were more scary horror, although there was an element of, companionship and love between the characters and everything. But I would still class her books as more horror than anything else. But then again, it sort of turned with the movie adaptations, and then the interest of vampires. All of a sudden, the vampires became less horror and more romantic, especially when Stefanie Nici did the Twilight series. Vampires were not horror anymore. They were completely romantic characters.
They were going to school.
It's quite funny how it all changes. We've got loads of comments, so I'm going to quickly pop them on.
Okay.
Sue recommends Nosferatu. She says, excuse the spelling. Sue, I am just as bad at spelling, believe it or not, even though
it actually looks good to me, though. I think it's right.
I don't know if that's right or not.
It's a tough one.
Grammarly, I can say that's all I can say. Dot says, where in New York, New Jersey is Stefanie from?
Oh, I guess it's my accent. Right now, I'm on Long Island, but I'm from the boroughs, Brooklyn and Queens, and I was born in Philly. So all of those across the board have accents of their own. So I guess a mishmash of them all.
See, to me, you just sound like a New Yorker. I would not have a clue. I wouldn't have a clue. Claire's just joined us. She says, hi, guys. Lovely to see you all. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Claire.
Thank you. And we've also got Heather who's joined us, and she says, hi, everyone.
Hi, Heather.
And Donna says, feels like no fiction can be more horrifying than some of the real stuff that happens in our world. My gosh, you couldn't have said a truer thing there, Donna. I've got to tell you. Oh, and Leanna's just joining us. There we go.
Hi.
Hi, Leanna.
Hi, everyone.
You are fine. You are absolutely fine. We're just talking about, in fact, I'll put the comment up again for you, Leanna. Leanna, okay. For those of you who don't know, Leanna is an author, and she also has a blog called Slam Dunk's Luscious Reads, which you need to check out. It's absolutely fantastic. So I'm just going to pop up Donna's comment, which I think it's a bit of a, she's spot on. She says, feels like no fiction can be more horrifying than some of the real stuff that happens in the world.
Absolutely.
I've got to show she's absolutely spot on there. Some stuff that happens in real life, you hear it or you see it and you think, I couldn't make that shit up.
I know.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If somebody wrote it, it would be ridiculous.
That's right.
But it's really happening.
Just some of the stuff that's been going on here in Australia lately with domestic violence and, a father, well, I wouldn't even call him a father. He was a domestic violence abuser, went to court, and the powers that be decided that he didn't need supervision with his 9-month-old daughter. And 2 hours after going to court, he killed himself and the 9-month-old baby. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So, do you know what? In that sort of situation, I honestly think that the idiots who set him free should be charged with negligence.
Exactly. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, whoever wrote off on that has got that child's blood on their hands. It's just like they knew the horrific things that he did to his wife, yet let him go.
That is a horror story.
I tell you what, I think some of the best horror stories that I've read have been based on true stories.
Yeah.
And sometimes you don't even know that before you start reading the book. And you read it and you think, oh my God, and it's giving you chills. And then you find out it's based on a real life event. And I think that sometimes that just blows your mind because you're like, oh my God, somebody lived through that or didn't live
exactly.
Well, even with the children's stories, they say if you really dissect those stories, that really they're not nice. Like there's stories that we tell our children. One does not come to mind at this moment, but basically all of them, they're really not nice stories. But the way we read them, I guess, and the meaning that we try to, at the moral of the story is, and it's always supposed to be like a nice moral, share, be kind to others. But as the story is, as the story is being told, terrible things are happening sometimes. Which makes it horror.
Do you know it's Stephanie, because I don't know which computer I'm blasting it out of. Stephanie, have you got headphones available, darling?
I'm sorry, what?
Have you got headphones or earbuds available?
Oh, I can go and get them, yeah. Do you want me to get them?
Would you mind? I think my voice is coming through too loud on your side.
Okay. I'm gonna get them. I'm right back.
Sorry.
Okay, I'm right back.
Yeah, funnily enough, I actually read an article 2 days ago, and it was so fascinating because it was about the real life Beauty and the Beast. Now, that obviously we know that as not being a horror story. We know that it's been all lovey-dovey and finding love and and everything else. but it was actually based on a real life couple. Now, apparently, this guy, and I can't remember his name, I should have written it down, but he was actually born, I think in France. It was either France or France, and he had the medical condition where he's covered in fur, covered in hair, and basically he was given to the royal family as a pet and locked up and caged and horrendously, and then he was given to a gift to another royal family, which I think was in France, and basically the Queen was such a nasty piece of work. She thought it'd be funny to get him married to some poor unsuspecting girl who had no clue about his medical condition. Big public affair to humiliate this guy, bless him. And then luckily, I mean, they stayed married for 40 years and had 7 children. But 4 of the kids had the same medical condition, and they were literally given away to other royalty in other countries and spent a life of hell. It blew my mind, the fact that Beauty and the Beast was based on a real life couple that went through horrific times in real life.
Oh, I missed that because I had to get up. But yeah, so you're talking about a children's story, right? Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
Isn't it insane? I don't
my mind.
I don't mean to interrupt, but I know you wanted me to get headphones. I only have these, but I don't know if they're going to work. No, I don't think they're going to work. Does anybody know if these will work on my laptop?
I don't know, but don't worry. Don't worry.
I'm sorry.
No, you're fine, darling. You're fine. I'll try and tone my voice down. I've got quite a strong voice.
Maybe it's me. Am I talking too loud?
No, you're not. It's definitely my voice. I'm going to put some more comments up so we can have a look. Sue Scott, hello Sue. She says, one of the scariest movies I ever watched was Halloween, the first TV showing. They had cut the bloody scenes and left everything to your imagination. I think sometimes that's worse.
I loved Halloween. Oh my gosh. And movies ain't like that anymore either.
No,
right?
Agreed.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody gets scared at that. You know, just talking about movies for a minute, you know what movie was so scary when it first came out? Everybody was afraid. I don't remember the name of it, but maybe it was called A Cabin in the Woods. But these college students went to the woods, and then they read
something.
No, not the Paranormal Activity. This one is Bruce Campbell, I think his name is. I think he even wrote the script.
Evil Dead.
Evil Dead. Yes, that's the one.
Yeah.
And they go to the cabin. Did you see that one, Beth?
Yeah, I saw that.
And you saw that, Leanna? And Jim, you saw it?
Yeah, I saw it.
But Beth, you didn't see that one? Well, when it first came out, I mean, now forget it, you'd laugh because now it's like ridiculously funny. But Leanna and Jim, when it first came out, wasn't it scary or no?
It was.
Yeah, very much.
It was so frightening. And then they read something, right? Like some kind of, I don't know, from a book or a spell. Yeah. And then they started like turning into like Evil Dead. It was just so, and the girl was like floating in the, like just that stuff was so scary back then. And then I watched it again with my husband and we were like laughing because it was like so ridiculous. And I said, I can't believe it. I was so frightened of that. Like stuff that like I was afraid to go to sleep and turn the light out, you know? But now it was like
the thing with that movie, what we found, so I grew up in the middle of nowhere and we used to go to a little youth club that only had about 15 children. And my dad used to set up a video machine, so we'd have like a video night or whatever, and we actually took Evil Dead there one night. I hadn't seen it, and of course there was kids there of about 6 or whatever, and some of them were white by the end. We didn't know what it was going to be like at all. And I mean, I was probably about 12 at the time, but some of these kids were probably traumatized by it.
From the movie. Yeah, I mean that was scary. And the branch, it was just so much.
Yeah. Right, it was the voice of the demon that got me. It was just so scary. And even for the time that the movie was made, the graphics for that time was pretty full on. And so because it was not 1980. 83, 84 or something.
Yeah.
Before that. Oh, yeah, but for that time, the graphics and everything were, spectacular.
Yeah.
So seeing, all of the tree branches and everything come out, but the music, it was the music that was frightening as well.
Yes.
But that voice of the demon
the
stayed with me
demon
for
voices.
ages.
And when they would go into the woods, the camera would leave the cabin and go into the woods to let you know that something crazy was happening in the woods. And you'd be like so afraid, like, what's that tree going to do? And then the tree wouldn't do anything at that moment. And then it would flash back to the cabin where these people were like locked in. They couldn't get out, and they were just terrorizing each other. And the one especially that they locked in the basement, do you remember the door was flipping up and the lock was on it? And she was like, hee, and she, one of them kept on laughing on the bed. I mean, that is like mental torture. And that was, pretty scary. But now it's the comedy. So, Beth, if you get a chance and you want a good laugh, you should definitely check out Evil's Edge.
Make you laugh now, because I think one of the most horrific things I watched when I was young, which I felt was a horror, was actually Watership Down. Oh my God. My auntie took me to the cinema to see it after I got badly burned with hot water. It was not a pleasant thing.
Oh my God, that sounds like a horror right there.
It was exactly.
That's scary.
It was like that, all down my front and back anyway. Oh. So to cheer me up, my auntie decided to go
see good movie.
From one horror story to another horror story.
We'll go cheer Beth up. We'll take her to the movies to see Watership Down. That bloody movie gave me nightmares for weeks.
What was it? Was it a military?
No, it's bloody rabbits. But there's one in particular rabbit, a nasty piece of work, and the kid goes around literally ripping other rabbits apart, and I'm like,
oh my God.
That was my face. That was my face in the movie theatre. My auntie Kathy said, "This is a great movie, isn't it?" And I'm like, I had nightmares for weeks.
That sounds terrible. That sounds terrible.
I couldn't go near rabbits for
You were traumatized.
Especially if they were white with the pink eyes and they're looking at me. I'm like, oh.
You see how effective horror movies and books can be. Horror can it really is effective.
Children's movie though. I mean, it's supposed to be like Watership Down, Fluffy Bunny.
That was a children's movie.
Yeah.
It was aimed at children. I mean, there was no children PG rating or anything on the bloody thing.
That's insane. Maybe children that like to kill animals.
Oh my God! Oh my God! Right, we got
sales went down.
We've got some comments, so I'm going to put them on. Let's have a look. Okay. Claire's got a comment. She says, "Who would each of you say was one of the most absolute best iconic horror characters?" Oh, that was a good question.
Oh, that's
Leah.
That's a hard one.
I mean, I have to say, because I mean, I think this was a book before it was a movie, and I think everybody would agree that it had to be Linda Blair from The Exorcist.
Good one.
Because that scared the crap out of everybody, right? I mean, that had everything: demons, religion, and children.
And in that movie, we lived down on a sheep and cattle station here in Australia, and my stepdad was a station hand. And this one day we were about a half an hour, 45 minutes away from town, so we didn't even have TV properly. I think we had one TV channel, and so we lived basically watching videos back in that stage. And we got The Exorcist, and my mum, my sister, myself were all sitting on the couches. My stepdad and his boss were having a cup of coffee behind us at the kitchen table, and we just got to that part where her head started spinning around, and all of a sudden there was this massive clanging, banging noise, and those bastards went outside, had gotten chains and thrown them on the roof. We had a tin roof. Well, I went running in that direction. My sister went running in that direction. My mum went running in that direction. and I have not seen the rest of that movie ever since. And my poor sister, she was just, and to this day still traumatized. She went and got rosary beads and everything at the Catholic church and would pray every night before going to bed. She ended up
that was so mean of them. They probably thought it was funny, but
they weren't laughing for too long because Mum was the word divorce was thrown about.
I think I might have committed murder.
But I've not been able to watch the end of that movie, and it's just because, and I think because it's based on true events is another reason why I can't watch that movie as well, you know. So but yeah, I think I'd have to agree. The Exorcist was right,
that's the one that comes to mind.
It's the one that comes to mind, definitely. Yeah. And then just recently Salem's Lot by Stephen King.
Oh, okay.
I was able to I was actually able to get the DVD on from eBay. So it's getting delivered any day now. But I was about 7, I think, and I really wanted to watch it. It come on TV, and I really wanted to watch it. Mum said, no, you can't watch it. It's not suitable. You're too young, rah, rah, rah. Well, I knew better, of course. And I snuck down the stairs, and we had like a spiral staircase, snuck down the stairs to watch Salem's Lot. Worst mistake of my life.
Oh, my God.
Every nightmare I had, even now sometimes, is about vampires and me getting attacked by a vampire. And I remember running back up the stairs and hiding under the bed with the blanket covers and everything, and I got my fingers like this. Mum came, and I remember
Mother knows best.
And I remember Mum coming in the room the next morning to wake me up, and I'm still laying in bed like this.
Wow, that movie really had an effect on you.
Oh, it really did. It really did. But now, I mean, I love vampire movies. I love to read vampire books. It's just something that has stuck with me ever since. But yeah, I've got to learn everything the hard way.
You have to see for yourself, right?
Yeah.
Was absolutely it was one of my favorite books, I have to say. But I could just imagine you, you know, what would you like for Christmas, Leanna? Oh, crucifix, please, Mum.
Some garlic.
And some bowls of garlic. And holy water, right? Holy water. Don't you need some holy water? I think, like, sprinkle on the demons and the vampires and stuff, right?
I'm not religious by any means, but I used to, on the way to school, stop in at the Catholic cathedral and light a candle for my grandfather, because my grandmother was always threatening to murder him. And I think that was my first I don't know how would you say it, into getting into the occult religion.
Oh, okay.
You know, so yeah, it's but
that's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting how that, you know, led you to light candles for your grandfather.
I used to
call it the occult, though, so it's pretty interesting.
I just loved him. I loved him so much, and I would think, you know, if you would just learn to shut your mouth and not give Nan a hard time, she would stop threatening to kill you.
Yeah. And I can stop lighting these candles.
I swear, someone could write a horror movie just on my childhood. I tell you what.
Well, there's a book for you, Leanna. There's something for you to work on. Change the characters around a little bit, and you probably got a good story there.
Oh yeah, right? Yeah, definitely. I'm working on one now. It's a vampire story, and I've no idea where I'm going with it just yet. It's all coming at me all over the place, and I've just been writing scenes here and there, and I'm hoping at the end of the day that it all just adds up.
Yeah, just have fun with it. Is it going to be present? Is it going to be present day? The vampire.
Yes. Well, the backstory is from like a century ago, but it'll lead up to like the first chapter will be present day, and then forth. Yeah.
Well,
that sounds fun.
You've got plenty of personal experience in the horror field to like throw some stuff in. Uh, Jim, what about you, darling? What's your favourite horror character?
I guess it's probably Jaws. I would say.
Oh, that's a good
So
one.
I love the
Good
book.
movie.
The book was fantastic because I love the backstory of the characters that the movie didn't quite kind of go into because it was all slightly different on that. But yeah, I mean, I remember watching the movies ever since I was really little, and slowly as I'd hear the music at the beginning, and because when they used to have the credits, didn't they, at the beginning of the movies, and it would all be underwater and you wouldn't actually see anything, and there I'd be kind of hidden, but excited about watching it and still a bit on edge as well, and just absolutely loved it. But I've still always been a bit wary being in the water ever since. Which,
that stopped people from going to the beach.
Yeah.
Like people were afraid to go in the water.
Yeah, they were.
So that is a good horror character. Jaws, the shark.
Peter Benchley, who wrote it, was huge shark fan, and it really disturbed him to think that he had almost single-handedly made whole generations of people scared of sharks.
I remember reading an article about that.
And the music was good, right?
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
Didn't it?
And
the way it went, that was scary.
And I think Steven Spielberg done such a fantastic job on that movie with the budget that he had, but the way that he did it, because it was the music again. The music drew you in, and you knew that something was going to happen, and you were just waiting, and then nothing happened, and you go, oh, phew, and then something happened, and you jump out of your seat. He was phenomenal in doing that. Yeah, and I think that's what scared people the most.
The shock
factor.
Yeah, the shock.
So what about you, Stefanie? What's your favorite horror character?
Oh, I would think it was my favorite or the scariest, because I would have to go back to Linda Blair being the scariest in The Exorcist. But my favorite, I don't think I really have a favorite. I mean, zombies scare the heck out of me. Like, I used to be able to watch zombie movies when I was a kid, but now seeing people getting their flesh ripped apart, or that like that noise they make when they walk, like I couldn't even play that video game that my kids have. I don't remember the name of it, but there's zombies in there, and they really scare me. I don't know. I mean, there's a few. I know some people might think Pennywise from It, the clown. I mean, I know the original was done one way, and then they say the second one was better. I don't know. I guess I don't really have a favorite. There's just like maybe certain things that I remember that like stick out. But vampires are cool, and everybody loves Twilight. But that wasn't really horror Twilight, right?
No, it wasn't.
That was more romance.
Yeah, I know, and I still haven't seen all of that properly yet, the Twilight movies, and my kids are so disgusted with me. But
I haven't seen them all either. I think probably the first one.
I made the mistake of going and seeing the first one with my wife, and we were in there, and I was looking around, and I was pretty much one of the only males in there, and every time the guy came on the screen, it was just everywhere was like. I was like, what is going on here? I walked into some Twilight Zone. I was like,
Twilight Zone, right?
Is your wife Team Edward or Team Jacob?
Good question.
I remember. I don't know. I mean,
he doesn't even care. He's like, I don't want to hear about this Twilight anymore.
This was about 10 years ago, wasn't it? So
I think it was longer than that.
I mean, when I first watched, I know everybody wasn't crazy about it, but I really liked the first one. I thought the first one was really good. I don't know. I got all caught up into that romantic vampire romance thing with, the human girl or whatever, the regular girl or whatever it's called, the alive girl, because I guess the vampires are the dead or the undead.
Yeah.
So I guess Kristen Stewart, what would she be? The alive girl? The girl in the story.
I've got to say, I much preferred the books to the actual movies. I mean, the movies were okay, don't get me wrong. The movies were very well done. But like most things, I preferred the books because there was more detail in there. There was more depth in them, a bit more action and stuff. So I did prefer the actual books. We're going to put some more questions up. Hang on a minute. Let's have a look. Okay, Donna says, I swear Disney films are barely concealed horror films, lots of death and horror and stuff in them. I absolutely agree.
I've heard that too.
I think you're right, because they do a lot of stuff that's quite scary, but it's done in a sort of light-hearted way, isn't it? So get away with it. Sherry's joined us. Hi, Sherry. She says hi.
Hi, Sherry.
Hi, Sherry.
Now, Wendy says Evil Dead.
Yeah, that was the one. And there's so many spin-offs from that now as well. There was even they did like a TV show, I think, on Netflix for a while there. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
They did.
I did not see that. But let me ask you guys a question. If you see, look, we're talking about horror, so let's stick with horror. I mean, and even Twilight. If you see the movie before you read the book, and then you read the book, does it somehow, I don't know, would you rather read the book before you see the movie? Because to see the movie kind of, I don't want to say it ruins the book, but does it kind of ruin the book? Because now you have this whole visual thing going on, and then sometimes the story doesn't match up with what you saw.
Okay, I can see what you guys think, because personally, I would rather see the movie first and then read the book, because 9 times out of 10, the movies don't do the books justice.
Right.
And
when you explain things a little bit, but go ahead. However, what were you going to say?
However, there are a few movie adaptations which actually did the book real justice. So it's a very, very difficult one. See, I'm such a huge fan of Stephen King. I've read nearly all of his books, but nearly every movie adaptation was such a huge letdown compared to the book. I mean, for example, Tommy Knockers was one of my favorites, and that's like horror but with an element of sci-fi, because it's
which one? I didn't hear the name.
The Tommy Knockers.
Oh, the Tommy Knockers. Okay.
The book was fantastic, and it was
amazing. I've just recently bought the paperback. Yeah,
it was phenomenal, and in my head, it was absolutely epic. But the movie adaptation was like, oh, was that it? I was so let down.
It was such a letdown. It was very disappointing, and I think Stephen King had said in an interview that movie disappointed him because the book was so popular, and I think because of the I don't know, but it's because of the creative difference between the director and his version and vision of it. There was a lot of issues on set, and he didn't like the movie.
I don't think he likes a lot of the movies that are made from his books. I don't think he's, I guess, happy with it.
I love how
the movie goers, and then sometimes if you stick with the book, the movie goers aren't going to be happy, right, with what they see.
Yeah,
it's like
and
two different animals, I guess.
Exactly, and I think that's how we interpret them too, because we can all read the same book and get a totally different interpretation of it.
Yeah.
And how we see the book in our own eye, in our own mind's eye, is totally different. And when the movie comes out and you're like, well, that didn't happen, or that they didn't put that part in, and it can be very disappointing, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, with The Shining, you guys remember The Shining? Did everybody see it and read the book? So I'm pretty sure in The Shining, the son was supposed to be the one that the spirits want or cling to. That might have been how it was in the book. But then when the movie was made, they more or less focused on the dad.
Yeah.
Because I guess that's really where, on TV, or in the movies, that is really where the excitement comes from, especially Jack Nicholson's performance when he goes, "Here's Johnny," which I think he made up. I think he ad-libbed that. I could be wrong. But that movie to me was a little peculiar. I know The Shining gets rave reviews. People say they love it. I wasn't really a big fan of it. I found it to be like, maybe the age that I saw it too, I really didn't understand what was going on. I just thought it was a little peculiar. I don't know. I thought they could have did the movie a little better, a little different.
I enjoyed the movie. I loved the book more. But I thought the movie was quite well done. However, if the spirits had been, if it had been more to the book and the spirits were, you know, focusing on the child, I would have found that a lot more spooky in a movie than the adult. Because anything that affects the kid is going to freak you out even more.
True.
What with The Shining or with the reading?
No, with books in general, do you prefer to watch the movie first?
No, I will almost always read the book first. And if I know something's coming on Netflix and I've got the book, then I will make sure I read the book before I see it.
But then are you disappointed if it doesn't match up? Like, are you disappointed if you read something in the book and then it's really good and it really, you know, it's gripping, and then you watch the show and you're like, hey, where's that part? How come they didn't put that in the movie? Because I don't like when that happens.
I think I'm so used to the two never matching up that I think I always enter it expecting them to be two separate kind of entities almost. So and you know, like we were saying with you know, with your own perception of when you're reading the book, you know, we all will imagine something completely different, and you know, the faces will be completely different. They're never going to be the same as the actors or actresses.
Exactly.
And I think the other, you know, when you've got directors, you know, directors as themselves are their own, you know, they see themselves as the most important person, and they're the huge creative person on that set. So I don't think all the time, or even much of the time, do they ever want to copy the book completely, unless it's something that either, you know, the author's on set or there's some financial gain, so the author is a executive producer and what have you. I think very much they will want to put their own stamp on it. Plus they're thinking commercially, what will make them money, what will make them, you know. So I think there's a lot of, you know, maybe egos involved and also
that's a good point.
And certainly with The Shining, I mean, you know, you think of Stanley Kubrick, and you know, he was his own strange kind of ideas on movies and things anyway, and you know, he went to the nth degree, didn't he, taking hundreds and hundreds of pictures of scenes until he got it exactly right. And so, you know, you're always going to get that strange kind of twist to things. I think my own, that's why I'm always assuming the two will never marry up. So I'm hoping there'll be two things that I'll both enjoy, but you know,
I think another thing we think of is that obviously movie directors and people in the movie industry, they've got to think a completely different way to us, because when we're writing the story knowing that our reader can create that in their mind and create that scene in their mind and that action and that event. Whereas anybody in the movie business, they have to think what it's going to look like on screen. So we're actually looking at it visually. So something that we might think was really cool in a book or really super scary and stuff, they might not be able to create that same thing on screen.
That's a good point too. Yeah. It doesn't translate the same way, right? From the book to the movie. Like you read it, but then you don't see it that way.
Exactly. So
they have to make that. They have to make that decision as well. Of do they do something that's subtle that maybe a lot of people will miss, or do they have to almost dumb it down so that point is got across, and you know, the audience isn't asking questions, but then are they taking it away from a thinking person's movie to you know,
it's
a very fine line, isn't it? You know,
because it could be disappointing too if it's not executed properly. You're like, what? Like it could just fall flat.
Exactly. And I mean, if you've got you know, your favorite book and they make that into a movie and it turns out it's nothing what you thought it was going to be, it's so disheartening.
It is. It kind of ruins it.
It does. Yeah, it does. It does. And you know, like Stanley can't pronounce his last name.
Stanley Kubrick.
Kubrick. Yeah, he really marched to the beat of his own drum. That dude. Yeah, you know, even the movie that he directed with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman.
That's what I was. Eyes Wide Shut. That was his last film, I think, right before he.
That was his last film. That's right. It was his last film, yeah. And that was like, and even to this day, you know, I've watched it and I'm like, what the hell did I just see?
Yeah, I don't get it either.
Yeah.
I think it's like a private kind of joke or a private kind of world that
I think so.
You have to see his movies
Yeah,
about 3 or
right.
4 times before you can actually
Before
get
you
everything.
think.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, and I'm a nice girl, but a bit slow. But that just went, you know, completely over
right
my
over your
head.
head. It was familiar with the masks, and I definitely agree. Beth, you too?
Yeah.
Right, we've got 10 minutes left, so I'm going to quickly go through some more comments and shout outs.
Okay. And I just want to say one more thing about Stephen King after you do your thing, Beth. I just want to talk about one more book if we can.
Of course.
I'll be fast.
Let's have a look. So, Carla's joined us. Hi, Carla. She says hello.
Hi, Carla.
Hello.
Hi, Carla.
Hi.
Doctor's Psycho, another.
Oh, yes, Norman
That was a
Bates.
good one too.
How could we
Yeah.
forget him? Oh my God!
I know.
And all those camera takes and angles that they said Hitchcock had to do for that
That's right.
stabbing shower scene. Yeah, that was creepy. And then the dead mom in the rocking chair. Oh my God! So many spoilers. I hope everybody saw these because I'm giving away spoilers. Everything I'm talking about. Spoiler alert.
I reckon all these authors should be given as a cut because we're selling all their books. Look.
Yeah, that's right. I agree.
Sherry says that sounds scary. She could be talking about any one of them, really.
Either one of them.
They all sound scary.
Exactly. She says, Carrie, movie to me. That was another good one. That was actually quite well done.
Yes.
I've got to say that was quite well done. Claire says, by the same author of Watership Down was a story called The Plague Dogs. Oh my God. So maybe it was a horror movie my auntie took me to then. He says, oh my days, it was absolutely devastating and the ending is horrific. I appreciate you sharing that, Claire, because I will definitely not be watching that.
Me too. Thanks, Claire. Thanks for the heads up.
Oh my gosh. Leslie's joined us, who's another author. Hi, Leslie. She says, I'm in a waiting room, have to watch later. Hi, everyone.
Hi.
Hello.
Always comment afterwards, Leslie. It's all good.
Yes, we will definitely read those comments too.
Exactly. Matt has joined us. Matt says, evening all at work tonight, but we'll catch what I could. Oh, well,
Matt. Thanks for joining us.
Just for everybody who knows who's watching, if you aren't able to watch the whole thing or you're watching it when it's over, you can also listen on my new podcast as well.
That's right.
So I'll be sharing on the podcast as well, and it's on Anchor FM, Spotify, Google Podcast. There's loads of them, so you can listen to it while you're supposed to be working.
And podcasts are great because you could be cleaning the house. You could be folding laundry, cooking. That's what I do, and I pop on the podcast. So I think that's
there's a horror movie.
Housework, right?
There's another horror movie.
Oh my God.
So true.
Exactly. Sherry says, I always like the books better than the movies that they make from the books. Too much is left out for me. And I think that's another thing that we have to remember is that and Autumn said this a while ago. I can't remember how much she said, but so many pages is a minute of a movie. And we don't really comprehend that because especially if we're really into a book, we speed read. And when it gets to a really critical part where there's going to be a horror action or something really transforming in the book, we tend to read it even quicker because we can't wait to see what happens.
To see what happens.
Yeah, it's exciting.
And our brain works so quickly when we're reading, we don't even realize that we're literally playing a movie in our mind of what we're actually reading. But to transfer an actual book to a movie form, for example, most of the Stephen King books, if they actually did it, including everything, the movies would be so long, nobody would want to go.
Well, that's why they did. That's why they did The Stand, and they made it into a miniseries because the book was so long. They wouldn't have been able to make a movie.
Right.
Exactly.
So that's why they made it into a miniseries. Yeah.
It's very, very interesting. Claire says, got to get some sleep for work now in the AM. Oh, bless her. Been great to listen to you all. Thank you. Oh, you are so welcome, Claire.
Thank you for watching, Claire.
She is
Bye, Claire.
Awesome. She is so awesome. Donna says, I think The Green Mile is one of the few Stephen King films that nailed it. I
agree.
100%.
Yes.
Yeah.
Whoever was in charge of the casting for The Green Mile
got it right.
Nailed it. Every single character was cast to perfection. And especially.
Oh, Beth got frozen again.
Oh no.
Beth, she froze up too before you came on.
As well, wasn't it?
Perfect. That's right. We'll have to do a part 2.
We will.
Well, hopefully, Beth will come on. I hope she's come back like an out-of-body experience talking about all this horror.
Attack of the Body Snatchers.
It's glitched. Oh,
What's that mean? You were like hijacked by aliens or ghosts or something?
No, do you know what? If I'd have known it was going to do this, I would have had some fake teeth and some fake blood. And when I like,
that would have been awesome next time.
Surprise!
Nobody heard that, okay? That is definitely a great idea.
I can edit it all out later on. It's all good.
Oh, that's right.
So Matt says Donna
and Shawshank.
And Shawshank was another very, very well done movie. Although
Stephen King.
I never read the book. I have one of the few books that I haven't
read the book.
And I think
I didn't know.
Well,
I didn't know until recently that he actually, or until last year it was, that he actually wrote the book Shawshank Redemption.
Yeah, because that's so not him. You wouldn't think that would be a Stephen King. You wouldn't have thought it. That's right. Yeah.
Well, my husband has watched that movie so many times because it's his favourite. He has watched it so many times. I feel like the characters are like neighbours. I know that.
And you know what they're going to say, right? You know what they're going to say and everything. You can do the dialogue.
I've never had to actually read the book because I feel like I could literally just tell you the story fluently through the movie.
I will watch anything.
I'm the same with Stand By Me. So,
that is fantastic.
Good one. Nobody associates Stephen King with these movies, but that's a great movie.
And pretty much all the dialogue is exactly the same, isn't it?
It is.
I don't think
that's a fantastic movie.
So very good.
Isn't it amazing? The more we talk, the more we keep finding really good movie adaptations that we didn't realise they were there.
Yeah, I mean, we could do a whole hour on Stephen King. You know what I mean? On another time, we could, if you guys want to get together again, we could just do a whole hour on Stephen King because I have some things to share, and I'm sure you guys do too. Because I know it's 7:00, so I know we have to cut it. But maybe we could do an hour on Stephen King. Poor Beth, she's probably like, "Oh, Stefanie, you keep on." Beth is so overworked that I'm giving her more and more stuff to do.
I would definitely be up for that because I've read so many of Stephen King's books. I'm a huge, huge fan. But I'd also like to sort of talk a bit more about James Herbert because I don't know that many other people that are huge James Herbert fans, and yet I think he's written some of the best horror stories going.
Tell me a few, because for some reason it's not coming to mind.
Doesn't ring a bell to me.
I first discovered James Herbert. My school friend Zoe had a collection of horror books, and she had a lot of James Herbert. And his first book, or the book I read first that really piqued my interest, was called The Rats. And I will never look at rats in the same way again. I love them. I mean, I'm not a great fan of rats and gerbils and stuff like that. Anyway, they're like
right, the rodents.
Yeah, me as well.
They are scary.
But
in real life too.
It was such a well done. It was such a well done book. I mean, I was addicted, and I literally demolished it in 2 days. So you've got The Rats, then the next one is The Domain, And then the third in the series is called The Lair. And oh my gosh, it's like the rats win over the humans. The humans don't stand a chance because, you know, when you think about how many rats are literally in one city that you don't see, but if they all came out, they would they outnumber the humans. And it's like, do you know what I mean?
Is horrifying.
It's like
horrifying.
Yeah, that's like head lice. Once they come out, they're everywhere. There's another horror movie for you. There's another horror movie for you.
The other one.
You know, they've made some. I'm sorry, but I just want to say this because Leanna made me laugh. But they have made so many movies about rats and mice and, you know, scary movies, Jaws with the sharks and stuff like that, and whales and, you know, the birds. How come they never did, like you said, the lice?
That's right.
How creepy. The lice go in your ears and then you could, you know, form inside your body. Oh, that's disgusting.
Oh, no.
Yeah, but you think about it.
But, Sean Hutchins' Slugs. That was one of the first books that I.
Yeah, that's slugs. Yeah.
Right, head lice and things like head lice and bed bugs and all that sort of stuff. It's a little bit too close to home.
Tell me about it.
When Jaws came out, how many people did it affect going into the water? Can you imagine?
Oh, heaps.
I mean,
everybody shaved their heads.
Oh my God. They would be freaking. You think about it, right? Leanna has just mentioned head lice, and half the people who are watching are like that already.
Yeah. Well, next time you see us, we're all going to be bald.
My daughter gets it quite a lot, so I've got a lot of knowledge about head lice.
So we know who to come to.
And she has long, thick hair as well. So
wow,
that's my nightmare.
Do you know what? I feel your pain because my daughter Holly was exactly the same. Thick, dark hair down to her butt. And there was one child in her class that constantly had them, that kept giving them to the whole class. And it got to the point where poor Holly said to me one day, I'm literally combing through her long hair down to her butt again. Like, it was getting to the stage like once a month, if not twice a month, for mum to do it.
Yeah.
And she went, Mummy, just cut it all off. Just cut it. Her hair was down to her butt, and she made me cut it off to hair. I was heartbroken.
Well, you know, they do say that they're attracted to clean hair.
Yeah, they are.
That's right. Yeah.
So maybe she should have not washed it and she wouldn't have got some. Long hair, but it would have not been washed. But yeah, I always forget that. But anyway.
But the thing is, if you do a horror story about something like that, that's really close to home, not only are you going to traumatize the adults, but you're going to traumatize the kids.
For all the kids who've been through it, they know it's hell.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, it is.
The kids will be going, Mama, you checking me again? Leave me alone.
Take out the comb with the evil, crazy look in your eye.
Oh my God.
That's a good cover of the book, The Lice.
And the one who's benefiting and the one who's benefiting from it the most is the chemical people, because the amount of stuff you've got to buy to wash the bed linen and, you know, go through their hair and their head lice cones and, you know, like, I'd be so rich. I'd be so rich.
Oh, no, right. Actually, you know what? As we've got people on, we've got lots of people on who are actually part of, you know, families and stuff and good kids and everything else. You can actually get, and I'll try and share the link. We thought it was supposed to be a horror chat, but
for lice, you mean?
I know, right?
Get like a free kit.
Yeah, because after I chopped all Holly's hair off, I then discovered this conditioner, and it's got tea tree oil, and I think it's DEET oil or something. I'll have to remember. I'll try and find it. But literally, I got recommended after the amount of money that I spent on all these. chemicals, and you don't want to keep putting chemicals on your kids' heads.
No.
Yeah.
Absorbing straight into their scalp, for God's sake.
Yeah.
But this conditioner, you literally used a pea-sized drop on your hands and you massage it into the hair after you've washed it. And I swear to God, she never got them again, ever.
Wow.
Preventative measure because they would not go near the smell. I will try and find out what it was that I bought. I know it was something in the UK, but I'm sure you can find an adaptation of it. But it was definitely tea tree and something. But I will find it and put it in the link or send it to you if you want. If you want to know, let me know in the comments.
Yes, please.
That's great. And now we have a beginning, a middle, and an end for a new horror book.
There you go.
And tea tree all same day. Who would have thought? Yeah, get typing, everybody.
Everybody watches.
Yeah, she's one already.
I'm ready. I'm ready to go.
You're all set.
Guys, it's been an absolute joy to talk to, and I love doing these chats with you because it's so much fun. I have got more comments and stuff here that I haven't got to, but obviously poor Jim's in the UK, and he's probably thinking, when's it going to be over?
I think I heard him snoring.
I know. For those of you who don't know, it's probably getting on to midnight at Jim's end, so he's probably because he's been writing and helping authors all day. Thank you, everybody who's watched today. If you've got any further comments or anything like that, please put them in, and we will all try and, if that's okay, we will all try and keep up with what you're posting and sharing. We will do another book chat because there's so much fun. We'll take a vote. What type of books would you like us to do a book chat about? Let us know in the comments, and then we can get together and organise something.
Sounds good.
Guys, you're fantastic. You are so much fun. I love you today.
You too, Beth. You are
exactly.
such a pleasure. And thank you so much for doing this. I've been so looking forward to it. So I'm so glad we got to do it. And I look forward to doing it again. Again and again and again and again.
I love it. I love it.
And don't forget, I will be uploading to the podcast so you can listen as well. And it will be available on my website and on my author page and YouTube and everywhere else. So if you didn't catch us live, you can watch us on any device that you've got for whatever platform. So we're all good. But thank you, my darlings, and we'll see everybody for the next Witty Writers book chat.
Bye, guys.
Yes.
Bye,
guys. And bye, Leanna and Jim. It was so great seeing you. And
You
Beth,
too.
thanks
You
again.
too.